But as we introduce our next panel, first thing I'd like to do, please take your seats, go ahead, is introduce the moderator of the panel. His name is Dinis, and I really hope I pronounced it correctly, because I've been practicing. And we've known Dinis for many years, and he's done many things. He's done things like building banks between Africa and Asia. And he's one of the most thoughtful people in this industry. He's got his own amazing project, which is Lifesci. You should ask him about that. And he's always in the top 10% of blockchain influencers. So nobody better to host this panel, because this panel is about securing your crypto assets. Please put your hands together for Dinis and his panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric. Okay, so I'll try to make sure that we have some dynamic on this. So it was great to have Charles before. I'm a huge fan, and fantastic work he's been doing with Cardano. And I think the point that we just as a starting idea is that we are in the inception of all this thing about crypto and blockchain. There's a lot of work to do. We can make a parallel with the 1928, with the stock market that started, or with the beginning of the internet. But this is much more radical, because if you look at 1928, there was a very small part of the percentage of the world economy that was not even access, it was just the US. If you look at 2000, or when the internet started with the .com, was only mostly US, and a very small part of the world economy that was still having access to the technology and all these things. And now we are in a verge and a crossroad between technology, economics, finance, and society decentralization systems. So when it comes to security, and I have a fantastic panel here, this is a cornerstone. And this cornerstone starts before crypto. It starts with all the data, and actually this week has been probably one of the most fantastic weeks to discuss about ownership of data, security, privacy, and a lot of other subjects. But when it comes to security, and I will pass to my panel, we have a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities, but all of us here are depending on security, especially the ones over here using crypto. So one question is, who has a wallet here? Great, so we are among peers. That's fantastic to see. Who has been hacked? Okay, no one recognized that, so that's okay, I understand. So I think that's a good point to start. So security touches all. It touches on the privacy, but it touches especially on our money. And I think when it touches our money, we become much more sensitive. So what I'll do is we're going to discuss three angles. So a point of situation about security. I don't have a lot of time. I'll try to synthesize as much as possible. The second part is best practices and case studies. And the third point is kind of some trends and some ideas that we see coming from the industry. And without spending more time, I'll pass the panel. I'll ask each of you to introduce with a small bio, as synthetic as possible, and then we go with the areas that we want to discuss.
Thank you. So my name's David White. I'm CEO of a company called KeyBox. And I'd like to start by saying, and particularly in view of my esteemed colleagues, that I'm not a security expert. In fact, I'm something that many of you will find a little bit scary, which is I'm a banker. So I'd just like to get that out there and start with that. My history was I was head of technology innovation for a small Scottish bank called the Royal Bank of Scotland. We did some interesting stuff there. I then went on to be, I guess, what you'd call a serial entrepreneur, doing some KYC AML companies and an AI company. And my journey into this is, as a banker and a fintech person, blockchain was the next brave frontier. And I spent a lot of time understanding how blockchain is going to hopefully revolutionize banking and avoid some of the mistakes we've made historically. But in doing blockchain, I decided to have a look at crypto, and I realized that I needed to be a security expert. And that's why I'm here today. In order for me to be safe in the crypto world, suddenly all of the things I didn't have to worry about in the traditional world of banking, such as understanding how my bank actually goes about securing my money, were a concern for me as a member of the general public entering the crypto world. And that's really what brought me here today, to say, actually, from a usability point of view, I shouldn't be a security expert. I should be able to enter the crypto world as maybe what one would describe as a sophisticated investor and feel safe. And unfortunately, as we stand today, I probably need to know more than just what I need to know from opening a banking app. So that's how I arrive here today.
Fantastic. Yeah, going by order.
Lewin, Böhnk. I'm a theoretical physicist by education. Spent most of my time with high-performance computing over the last 10 years. I got interested in Bitcoin in 2011 when I first read about it in an article which told me that it's too late to do mining. I didn't. I waited for the second article to tell me that, yeah, now it's really too late. Yeah, so ever since then, I had like half my time doing physics, half my time doing keeping up with developments in crypto. And now in October, I joined Crypto Finance as head of research, bringing the technology side into a company which really just wants to make cryptocurrencies accessible for the usual investor. And we had to realize that we need to build a lot of infrastructure in order to do that. One piece of infrastructure is an institutional-grade storage solution. So we founded that then as well, and I'm CTO of that. Crypto Storage AG.
Thank you. Julien?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm one of the co-founders of Smart Valor, so you probably know better of Smart Valor since this morning. Before that, I was in security business doing innovation and expertise in one of the worldwide leaders on security and identity management system, IDEMIA Morpho, for those who knows it. I like to tell that, well, I started to do research on crypto before crypto. So basically, I have a PhD in cryptography. I've done a lot of stuff on cryptography, research and security on different topics. I've been managing, for instance, a smart cards attack team during a while, and always trying to bring new, let's say, security technologies to product, to business, and doing innovation like that. And I've been done that during almost 15 years, and at some point I decided to join Smart Valor journey because I always like to see where there is somewhere where there is challenge, because there is lack of usability, lack of security, because, well, today we will talk about that, but today for crypto, for blockchain, we are often very focused on the tool itself, but the whole life cycle of the system, everything is very important. This is where usability and security is a challenge in general.
Very good. So, Eric?
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
It's working. Hello, yeah. My name is Eric Larchevêque. I'm an entrepreneur. I did a few startups and projects in Europe. And in 2013, I discovered Bitcoin, and it immediately struck me as the fourth industrial revolution. I really had to do something in the space, but I had no idea what to do. So I opened a Bitcoin center in Paris, La Maison du Bitcoin, the House of Bitcoin, which is still quite popular now, where basically you can buy and sell Bitcoin on a trading desk. And following this Bitcoin center, I met a few people, and we decided to found Ledger, which basically comes from the smart card industry, and we build hardware security solutions for crypto assets. Our hardware wallet, the NanoS, has been quite popular. We have sold 1 million units last year, so maybe some of you have this little device. And we continue our journey to build security solutions for enterprises and also for industrials, machine-to-machine payments, etc. So it's a long journey ahead, but a very exciting one.
Thank you so much. So trying to pass, because there's a lot of expertise here in the panel. So a couple of questions. So who is doing an ICO at the moment? Not so many people. Who is looking more from an institutional perspective of security, or from let's say institutional perspective of security? Just put your hand, please. Thank you. And from a personal perspective? I think the rest, no? Okay, so we have more interest on the personal security than actually on institutional. It's quite important to align the questions that I'm going to ask and make this as useful as possible. So what I would like to start, I think the first thing is how to store crypto. Let's start with that, because I think there's a lot of golden rules, there's a lot of questions, but one thing that was mentioned by most of you is the UI and UX of crypto is a disaster. I'm sorry, if you go to my Ether wallet, you get nervous. I get nervous each time I go there, and I've been on this for some time. So it's really a big problem. But let's start by you, because you have one of the biggest platforms in trying to get this more dynamic. So how would be the guidelines? So forget your expertise. So someone that is storing crypto, what would be the guidelines that you suggest? So let's start with this and then try to interact from a banking perspective, from a security, and from a more research base.
Well, to understand what it means to own cryptocurrencies, we need to understand that the property system is defined by ownership of an information, which basically we call that a private key, but it's data. And whoever knows this information can access the funds. So the question is, how do you manage this information? And you can store it on your computer, and basically that will be like buying gold and storing it on your chimney. It works. I mean, nobody can prevent you to do that, but it doesn't scale. So if you are serious about storing, managing cryptocurrencies, and if you want to own it, because there is also the possibility to use like a bank or an exchange, which basically will manage them for you. If you want to own it, you need to buy a safe, a digital safe, and like on a hardware wallet. But then the question is, it's quite complex. The experience of managing crypto with a hardware wallet, a device, is not easy. And at Ledger, for instance, we certainly face a very difficult challenge, which is basically to bridge security of assets where no one understands what they are doing, because no one understands really Bitcoin, especially the newcomers, and in the same time trying to give an experience of easiness, to be able to use crypto without thinking. But if you are your own bank, you have a lot of powers, and comes a lot of responsibilities, to quote Spider-Man. So it's true that it's not easy, and I think all the industry face a big UX challenge. And for the months and the years to come, it's certainly a large part of the research and development beyond pure security. We will have to find the right way to onboard the users and explain them what they have to do, the responsibility of managing the backups, etc.
Okay, so Julien, so thank you so much. So how do you see, you are in Smart Valor between institutional and now here with users and retail, how do you see this practical? So going from we know the challenge, so from the practical side, because there's a lot of people that want to have one Bitcoin. So if you look at the percentage of Bitcoin worldwide is, I think 0.5% of the entire Bitcoin universe owns most of the Bitcoin. So that means everyone else has 0. something of a Bitcoin, if you look at the major holders. So that means, and then there's institutional investors that have substantial amounts. And then probably they have professionals managing that. So how would you do that bridge between institutional and personal? And for someone that, well, I think most of you ask about personal storage, what would be the guidelines that you suggest on that?
Well, it will really depend on the let's say, experience of the users, and also what amount of money, of value need to be protected. It's interesting is that we have seen that in the last year, before that, until 2016, let's say, almost all users of wallets were quite aware of the responsibilities of what is owning a wallet. Nowadays, we really need to, I join Eric on that, we really need to work on user experience. So depending, I mean, some user will ask to use hardware wallet. We have to connect those hardware wallet and provide interface for that. Some users would like to say, I don't want to care at all with managing my wallet. And we need just, in that case, to provide a secure way to authenticate themselves, because we need to recognize the user, to recognize the identity when he claims transferring some money. And that means that in backend, we need a secure technology, kind of secure custody built. Also with the concept that we have seen on hardware wallet and credit cards, smart card technology, but this time on the back end using what has been called since a while as hardware security modules, this kind of stuff, to secure and to those assets. But this means also that it gives a lot of responsibility to the one managing those assets in the back end. So this means that you need process, you need security process to follow security standards, which are already well used in other industry. But this is always a trade-off between usability and security. Some users might like to do some, I don't know, cryptocurrency transaction directly from a mobile. So it's also a matter of risk management in the sense that depending on the amount that you want to transfer, and depending of your bank account or your amount of crypto, a transaction of 1 Bitcoin may be sensitive for one, and a transaction of 1 Bitcoin may not be sensitive for the other one. So you need basically to manage the level of assurance you need to have with respect to the authentication of identification of users.
Very good. So, Lewin, on your case, and you are scientific as well on this level, but on crypto finance and the work, in terms of best practice, what would be the guidelines that you suggest as well? I'm sure you deal with a lot of institutionals, but as well, looking at as a user, what would be like the basics? And you mentioned that it's about security. So the basics are the basics, but how do you suggest on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's very much a trade-off between usability and security. Honestly, I would not be surprised if the next big wave of really lost funds all about the board is compromised random number generators. Right? This is it doesn't really matter if you store your funds offline or if you use a hardware wallet or whatever. If the random number generator that generates the private keys is compromised, then that's it. And there has been a bug in the Microsoft random number generator that Microsoft recommends for cryptographic applications in 2007. Well, it was pre-Bitcoin, luckily. But if something like that would repeat today, we would really see substantial losses, especially for those people who use their Windows PC in order to store that. So the safest solution that you can have is just take a good book about cryptography, take these precision dice made of cellulose and nitrate, I guess, yeah. You have to store them cold, you have to store them dry, otherwise they crack and have density deviations. Go into a dark room, just roll your dice, generate your private keys from that, generate the public keys, have that all in mind. That's totally secure, that's probably the best they can do, also better than, hardware wallets, for example. They do have some considerations as well. But it's totally impractical. Nobody can do that. Nobody can remember their private key. So you very much optimized for security. You totally neglected integrity, for example. If you forget the keys, then everything is gone. So it is about finding the right spot there. And where you are on that right spot also very much depends on your personal level of paranoia. I'm very happy still having paper wallets that I generated like 5 years ago by now, and I still use them. Right? I still have a stack of them. I'm still comfortable using them, just because at that time, first I put a lot of work into producing them. I did combine several random number sources, and entropy has the property that it only gets better if you combine them. And I just generated those. At these days, I would have a hard time finding a printer where I can be sure that it does not store the private keys, right? That the printer doesn't have a memory. At that time, luckily, I still had one lying around. So the times where you can really generate, and there was not a lot of attention at the time on those attack vectors. So this pile of paper wallets is quite valuable to me at this point. For my day-to-day spendings, I'm comfortable using a hardware wallet. Where that level of paranoia is fine. I use, sorry to say that it's a great product, but I use, for example, the digital bitbox, not a ledger, just because of supply chain attacks. Right? Digital bitbox is sitting in Zurich. I can buy it from them directly. That just excludes certain attack vectors where your device is compromised on the way shipping to you. But I'm very much on the paranoid side also in my personal life. You might have noticed that now, which also, of course, transfers into the experience that we now make with institutional clients.
So passing to you, and I want to do the bridge between, because you come from banking, and of course, most of the things that I think most of the three of you are talking is a very small percentage of people that are doing hard wallets. Let's be honest. I would say that probably even in here on the audience, if I ask, very few people will ask the end. But one question I would like is, I think the challenge right now is that you can actually store your crypto in a wallet or in an exchange. And I think probably, who stores more, actually one question, who has more than 3 or 4 cryptocurrencies in your portfolio? That's great, so we have a great audience here. And do you do it more in exchanges? Who has everything through exchanges? Very few people. Okay, so very good. So that means you have a very good advanced level. So passing from a banking perspective to wrap up this subject.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the things we learn in banking very early on is the more complex you make the security, the less secure it's going to be. And that's simply adoption. And I think the problem you see is that if you're, Lewin's description, I'm going to find a dark room later today, but the reality of that is the adoption of that process would be virtually zero, and hence, fundamentally, the systems are insecure. And I think, we kind of brushed over UX and UI, but I think as a principle, one of the things, and the main driver around KeyBox is the only way to create mass adoption is to make security easy. Because people will not deal with money when it's not secure. We don't like leaving our wallet on a train. We think that's insecure. So in order to get mass adoption, security has to be a given. And in order for security to be a given, it has to be easy or we won't get adoption.
Yeah, that's the cornerstone of all of this. So coming back to Eric in terms of ledger, but as well in terms of general, and I think we went in terms of the wallet. So what would be the best practice from a pure, because I think if here the audience has more than 3 or 4 crypto, that means you are trading, or that means you are holding. I hope you are holders. But in the sense of what are kind of some guidelines between your wallet and the transactions with exchanges? Because most of the fraud that has been happening in the crypto world has been through exchanges. So what would be your, you have 1 million people using, so you have quite a lot of experience. What would be like best practice on that?
Well, you need to own your crypto if you want to be safe from the risk of exchanges. The good news is that exchanges now are more and more professionals, and they are aware that they have huge responsibilities, so they are investing into their IT security. But also the promise of cryptocurrency is to own your own money. So it is sure that having the private keys or using a paper wallet, hardware wallet, or just a wallet at home is important to own the cryptos. But from that, there are very important best practice regarding the backup. The backup is very, very important. We have a million users who need to have a backup, but sometimes they don't understand the importance of this backup, which is like 24 hours that you have to put in a safe, because it's the only way to recover your money, even that you have a hardware wallet or a software wallet. So managing the backup is very important. And then regarding best practice, I think that the next challenge that we will be facing is governance. Because if you have 100,000 euros in crypto at home, then you are at risk. Not the IT risk. Maybe the IT risk is covered, but maybe you can be, let's say, carjacked or homejacked, or someone can just have a physical threat on you. So the next generation, I think, will be governance, time locks, delayed opening, multi-signature, and this is true especially for financial institutions. So I think we are going to see more and more innovations into the field of security of crypto assets.
So we have only 2 minutes before we pass to the question. So David, on your case, on the governance part, which is a key element, and your experience between banking and now as well in crypto, what would be the guidelines that you apply? Because it's a very powerful topic.
I think we've got an interesting, I started saying I came to this through blockchain. One of the things that, and banks particularly are attracted to when they get involved in blockchain is the decentralized nature of it, because centralization is a fundamental problem around security. It's a fundamental problem around governance as well, for different reasons. And I think, one of the things that really interests me around the sort of moving on to forward trends is how do we make this move at the moment where principally all of the security, if you want to be secure, you take responsibility and you have a centralized solution, which fundamentally is going against the principles that I think we all appreciate around cryptocurrencies and in particular blockchain. So I think one of the interesting things for me around governance and also moving on to the trend side is how do we embrace the decentralized nature of the underlying technology when it comes to security? Because if we really want to move security forward and if we really want to make this wider adoption more accessible, then I think focusing our energy on understanding how to do security at a decentralized level is the trend we need to go in, rather than more focus on centralized levels of security.
Lewin, do you want to wrap up this? And then Julien?
No, I guess For that point, I don't have anything to add.
But more on the crypto part of your crypto finance, how do you suggest just a final overview on that?
Yeah, it's really, it cuts back to the best practices. Also, it's
Yeah.
it's really very much about if you want governance processes, if you want to be able to just make rules on who can spend the money. It's not, I mean, multi-sig, yeah, sure, that's a big part of it. But we also talked to institutions who told us that, hey, internally they have 3 teams, and each of the teams needs to approve a transaction. Where you might think, okay, do a 3 out of 3. But then the question is, who within the team did the approval? How do you have a governance process within within that team? So the possibilities that the blockchain, the native blockchain features give you is very, very limited when it comes to that. Bitcoin does have multisig. Ethereum has smart contracts, which lost 250 million in the last half billion. Yeah. Okay.
So, Julien, to wrap
Yeah.
up.
So I think we will see more and more maturity in this community, and this, I think we are all aware of the need to bring standardized procedure to handle the crypto tokens and the cryptocurrency coins, and standard groups and certification groups will start to work on all those things, and it will help a lot to have something on which we have really trust. We can trust some exchanges because they are now more and more serious, aware of the responsibility, and it all goes around the governance, security policy aspect, and this is a good and positive sign of the fact that the industry is moving forward. I think it's important to have.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up. So this is a lot of big things. We miss, for instance, the fraud and how to deal with exchanges, the trading part, the storage, and of course, one of the questions about this panel is precisely how to protect your wealth. But I think we touched a bit of this. It's impossible to go more in here. So I'll pass the questions. So any fantastic questions? So introduce yourself and let's go through this. And let's make sure that the question is very clear, okay? Because there's a lot of people.
Hi, Sophia. Let me start with this. I hate passwords. I don't know any of you love password, but I hate it. The thing is, I think that the biggest challenge for me as a personal investor is there are so many crypto assets available in the market right now. There's more than 1,500, and there are some solutions with you can store some crypto assets together, like some kind of wallets, but I think they don't offer so many options. For example, each wallet you can store up to like 10 maximum, I think. So how do you see the market is moving? Which direction? Do we will have a solution where we can store, many crypto assets together, so that we don't have so many passwords anymore? Thank you.
So I just want to, before I pass to the table, I think biometric technology is going to be key for that. And then as well, hopefully, as the exchange became more mature, we're going to have solutions like banking or BitWallets or BitPays, and without doing any advertisement on that, that I think are going to be key for the maturity of anyone that wants to invest. And I think it's very important that at the moment there's around 16 million people using wallets or holding Bitcoin, sorry, not wallets. And I think, or Bitcoin or some kind of crypto. And according to some new numbers, it might go to 50 million people, especially between US, Asia, and China, South Korea, and Japan. So I think there's a huge right now new audience coming. But as we mentioned here, the UI, UX, and the platforms are still in the beginning. And as well, bearing in mind that we have 1,500 cryptocurrencies, most of them that come from ECR through 20, there's a lot of dependence over my Ethereum wallet and Ethereum. So I think passing through this and trying to go, probably you, because you've been on the bridge between the two parts, and then...
I mean, I think it's a usability issue, and it's the same underlying problem, which is we have this scenario where there is a complexity in the market that you, as a user, have to solve. You have to take that responsibility. And I think, when we look at the numbers, 16 million people going up to 50. I mean, the reality is, in the UK alone, there are 68 million bank accounts, people with bank accounts, all of which manage to secure them to a reasonable degree. I mean, there's obviously exceptions. So I think, this does come back to usability. I think that separation of private key and thinking as private key storage as a separate thing, maybe to, crypto wallets is one route, and that's obviously what we're looking at KeyBox. But I think fundamentally for the industry, it's another example of a usability issue that we need to, take responsibility of and help the consumers.
Yeah, so last question.
I think, actually, Dinis, we've gone well over, although I know we could keep talking about this for a long time. Please wrap up.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, great speakers. And we are around. Cheers.
Thank you very much.